Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Calls. This is the 2024 BMW Championship Initial Research Show. Boy, the St. Jude was an unmitigated disaster for yours truly. We had a solid month of positive results here at Calls, and it all came crashing down this past week at the St. Jude. I got nothing correct. So I hope you had a lot more success than I did this past week for the St. Jude, and we turn our attention to the penultimate event in the PGA Tour season as a whole, the BMW Championship being played in Colorado. So we have a lot to cover. Let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is the best golf analytic tool out there for your money. It's going to make you a much smarter golf gambler and a much better golf DFS player. Look, with Fantasy National at your fingertips, you're not going to have to listen to a moron like me give you all of the incorrect suggestions on a week at the St. Jude. You're going to be able to avoid the Siwoo Kims, the Rory McIlroys, the Sung Jays. You're going to play the Sam Burns. You're going to play the Billy Horshells. You're going to play all of the correct plays. So check out FantasyNational.com. You will not regret it. In the description of the video, there are links to all of the social media. First off, my X and Instagram, where normally I post research around the previous course history of the course being played of the week, some patterns of former winners, players in the field that fit that pattern. But with this new course, or at least new course since 2006, no research going to be posted tomorrow for the BMW Championship. But if you want to see the weekly research that throughout the season I do on the PGA Tour, then give me a follow at your preferred social media site. X is also where I place my weekly betting cards and my top player usage in the DFS contest I play. That comes out every Wednesday evening after the DFS Tactics show. So, again, you would have seen all of the terrible plays I had this past week. The Sung Jays, the Siwoos, the Rorys. You would have seen the betting card, which was not fruitful either. So if you want to see if you want to see the players that I'm using in my lineups the most that week and my betting card for the week, give me a follow over at X. Lastly, for social media, Gabe's handle's in the description. He writes a great article called The Fringe. It's a wonderful way to start your week of preparation. He continues to update you with his own version of course history and recent form throughout the week. And if you are a subscriber to his article, which is free to do, you're going to be able to join us in his Substack chat every Wednesday evening after the DFS Tactics show as we continue the DFS talk in his Substack chat. It's always a fun, interactive, informative chat over there. Lots of discussion on who to play, who not to play, favorite areas of the price board, players that we're fading, going to, and all that. So if you are not subscribed to his article, you really are missing out. So make sure you are doing that and go give him a follow over on social media as well. Lastly, for this intro, we are live. Chat's open. I want to hear from you all. Again, I hope you had a whole lot more success than I did for the St. Jude. So let me know how this past week went for you. What do you know of the course being played this week in Colorado? Who do you think has the advantage in your mind early on this week, and all of that. So let's do our initial research for the 2024 BMW Championship. And we are going to start, as we normally do on a Sunday evening, over at the GCSAA Tournament Fact Sheet. As I've mentioned, this is a course that has been seen before on the PGA Tour, but it has been several years, 18 years to be exact, last seen in 2006 for a tournament that is no longer on the PGA Tour, the International. We are at Castle Pines Golf Club in Castle Rock, Colorado, about 20 minutes south of Denver. This is a Jack Nicklaus design, so perhaps we can take a look at some architect filters in Fantasy National, as Jack Nicklaus has his hands on a few courses on the PGA Tour. Of course, the Nicklaus Tournament course at the American Express, what used to be the Honda, what is now the Cognizant Classic, PGA National, and of course, Jack's Place Muirfield Village, the host of the Memorial. So he's got his hands on a few courses that are on the PGA Tour. We could perhaps take a look at that throughout the week. The biggest thing, or perhaps the most misleading fact about Castle Pines, you will see that this is an 8,130 yard par 72, but it will not play nearly to this length because we are at such a severe altitude this week. We are more than 6,000 feet above sea level here at Castle Pines. This course actually winds through some of the Rocky Mountains. So the course will not play nearly as long as the yardage says. With that, this is still a fairly long course, but will not be the brute that it appears to be just by the numbers. Castle Pines is a traditional par 72, meaning 4 par 5s, 4 par 3s. The stimp is 13, which would border on lightning. So I'm not sure if we're going to want to look at any speed filters, but be mindful of that these greens are listed as pretty darn fast, 13 on the stimp. And these greens are fairly small, 5,600 square feet, slightly smaller than the average green size on the PGA Tour, which is about 6,000 square feet. But these greens actually play a lot smaller than the listed square footage as well. Kind of akin to a Donald Ross design in the sense that you have several intricacies among the green, sloping, undulation, false fronts, a lot of green surface that will not play true to its true square footage. 5,600 square foot on average, 10 holes with water in play. These greens are bent and Poa annua. So I have some courses here that are also bent and Poa annua on the PGA Tour. We're looking at Detroit Golf Club, host of the 3M, Silverado, host of the Fortinet, TPC River Highlands, host of the Travelers. Those are the 3 courses traditionally that are on the PGA Tour that have bent and Poa annua. Last year's RBC Canadian Open also featured bent and Poa annua at Oakdale, and I believe last year's BMW at Olympia Fields also had bent and Poa annua. But the 3 regular courses or consistent courses on the PGA Tour, again, Detroit, Silverado, TPC River Highlands, are the ones with bent and Poa annua. We are on some bent Poa annua and rye in the fairways. The rough is a mix of bluegrass and fescue and rye, kept, you see, at 4 inches plus. So some very thick rough around Castle Pines this week. Some notes here. Course has 400 feet of elevation change throughout the course. So again, going or winding through the Rocky Mountains, the players will have a lot of elevation change throughout the course on holes specifically, and front 9, back 9. You'll have some blind shots. I don't necessarily know if they're tee shots or not, but some blind shots around the course. The entire course has been renovated since the last International in 2006. Renovation included new bunkers, new tees, renovated water features, etc. So there's a look at Castle Pines in terms of a GCSAA tournament fact sheet. Again, some highlights here. It's a Jack Nicklaus design, so we're going to be able to look at some things in Fantasy National with the Jack Nicklaus Architect filter. An 8,130 yard par 72, but again, that is quite misleading. This course sits at 6,000 feet of elevation above sea level, so will not play to that yardage. Slightly smaller than average greens, but they will not play to this size due to the undulation and just quirks of Castle Pines. There's a lot of sloping and undulation and false edges and whatnot. 10 holes with water in play, and we are on bent and Poa annua greens this week. So with that, normally we go to Fantasy National. Because Castle Pines has not been seen for so long, there's been several renovations, let's go to Pro Visualizer and get a feel for Castle Pines. Maybe not necessarily the best overlook or hole by hole preview, but we will go to Pro Visualizer and get a feel for how some of this course is laid out. So here is the overview here at Pro Visualizer. 4,000 yards roughly each 9, 40, 57, and 40, 21. Again, a traditional par 72, par 5 first, 657 yards. Interestingly enough, the par 5 17th, only 530. And again, at elevation, that is going to play like a sub 500 yard par 5. So lots of scoring opportunities, I would imagine, this week. You see that the 10th hole is actually a 540 yard par 4. Several long par 4s here, but again, they will not play to that true yardage thanks to altitude. 250 yard par 3, probably going to be a pretty difficult hole. No par 4s shorter than 400 yards. In fact, the shortest, I believe, is 435. So I doubt any of these par 4s are drivable, but we will have some short par 4s throughout this week as well. Again, thanks to the altitude. So a good mix of some long par 4s, some shorter par 4s, a couple of shorter par 5s, one extremely short par 5, a couple of longer par 5s. So a good mix of holes here at Castle Pines. Here is some layout. Looks like the par 3s are generally pretty straight. Lots of par 4s that seemingly sweep to the right, dogleg to the right, which is kind of a signature of Jack Nicklaus. There's a lot of talk around how Jack Nicklaus courses tend to favor right-handers with a fade because that's the way majority of his holes are set up. However, the par 5s look like they go mostly left. So there's a quick look at the layout analysis and the elevation profile. Again, with 400 feet of elevation change just throughout the round. You see how much golfers are going to be traversing the Rocky Mountains, including 17 and 18 coming back up a pretty substantial hill. Good evening, Derek. Thanks for jumping in chat. My week was a disaster. I got nothing right. I played a whole lot of Rory. He was my choice in the 10Ks. I had my fair share of Xander and Scotty, but I used mostly Rory. That was just horrific. I used a lot of Siwoo. That was not good. Sung Jae, not good. I did avoid some players that people were kind of asking about Wednesday evening or last Wednesday evening. So I managed to avoid those, but I also full faded the winner. And in a small field, it's just not going to work. So my week was really, really bad. Lost a bunch of money today after picking Xander to win, having Hideki come back and win like that. I mean, Hideki was, I don't know, you can't really call that a comeback. I mean, maybe since Thursday, sure. But, I mean, Hideki was pretty well in control of the tournament from Friday on. I mean, he just played extremely well. And I figured that, not having his regular caddy might have some issues. And it didn't. It just simply didn't. And Todd was in the optimal build, so there was, I mean, I had a couple of decent suggestions, but, you know, taking a big picture view, it was not good. And that absolutely came to fruition in the lack of return I had in a lot of the contests that I played. So we had a month of solid results here at the channel, going back to the John Deere, the 3M, and we were bound to have a bad week. I was hoping the bad week wouldn't be a disaster, but here we are. So we're going to try and get the ship right this week for the second playoff event and the penultimate event on the PGA Tour season, the BMW. We would be better. Well, I appreciate the compliment. I don't know about the best, but you know, I will never lie to you. I don't win all the time, and my contest would have shown that this week. But I do appreciate the compliment. I appreciate that everyone comes back week after week, even after bad weeks like we just had. So there's a look at Castle Pines, you know, kind of by the numbers in terms of a layout and kind of elevation profile. So let's go ahead and jump into some hole-by-hole previewing here of Castle Pines. And I will attempt to zoom in here, not too far. That way you get a stronger view of of every hole in general. Here's the par 5 first. Whoa, that is not, gosh dang it. My mouse is going crazy. I apologize. There we go. Pretty simple looking par 5 here to start. Seemingly a gentleman's handshake to the round. Long par 5, but again with elevation, shouldn't play to its true 657 yard listing. No water on this hole. Green protected by bunkers, so pretty innocuous start here. Hole 2, the start of what is going to be some water hazards on the course. Most of the water seems to be protecting greens here at Castle Pines. A very short par 4 or at least by Colorado standards, you know, sitting at 6,000 feet of elevation, but assuming a 325 yard drive, which probably isn't all that hard to fathom for the professionals at this altitude, setting up a very short wedge to a long and skinny green protected by water. Hole 3, again, more green, or another green protected by water here. Looks like you might need to try and favor the right side just due to the fact of this fairway tree here, but another green protected by water and a couple of bunkers there, so a slight dogleg left. Par 4 or hole 4, par 3, pretty straightforward. Par 3 long, 252 yards. Again, won't play to that true yardage, but a lot of traversing the Rocky Mountains. So players are going to have to be very, very precise with their distance, calculating altitude and uphill and downhill. So a real challenge with distance this week is what I would imagine, and probably a player like Bryson's, this is probably his dream course, if you will. But a pretty straightforward par 3 here, hole 4. 5, again, a slight dogleg right, the beginning of our numerous dogleg rights that is typical at a Jack Nicklaus designed course. No water on this hole, just looking like you need to avoid the bunkers and setting yourself up for a mid-length iron into a rather innocuous looking green, not protected by anything other than a couple bunkers short. Hole 6, again, another dogleg right, avoid the bunkers. From what I've seen so far, it does appear that the fairways do kind of pinch in the further you go, akin to Muirfield. Muirfield is pretty notorious that if you lay back off the tee, it's pretty easy driving at Muirfield if you are laying back. But when you start trying to push the driver, you're going to find a lot of trouble. So I'm getting that impression around Castle Pines as well. Again, 300-yard drive, which would be fairly usual at a normal course on the PGA Tour. This is probably a 3-wood at altitude for these professionals. So laying back to a fatter part of the fairway, or trying to push driver to set up a shorter shot, risk reward off the tee, I guess, to a fairly flat but wide green here. Hole 7, another par 3, the most heavily bunkered of the holes so far, at least protecting the green. 207 on the scorecard, or at least here on Pro Visualizer. Hole 8, long-ish par 5, 600 yards, no water, protected by a few bunkers, few large bunkers seemingly, but no water in play. Hole 9, I don't know if the course counts this as a water hazard. I mean, it's absolutely in play for me, but for the professionals, it's not in play. So, so avoid the trouble right, and then setting yourself up for an approach shot to a long, skinny green set at an angle with no trouble behind the green. I would imagine this probably won't play too difficult, would be my guess. Not that I've ever been wrong before. Hole 10, long par 4, 540 yards to another green protected by water in front, but no bunkerage. So literally all just fairway, rough, and water, and then green. So not a very difficult looking par 4. The difficulty comes into the length of the hole, 350 yard assumed drive to an almost 200 yard approach shot. So just a long par 4 here. Par 3, 11th, again protected by water in front, what appears to be the largest green on the property, but perhaps that is just due to the vantage point of the aerial pictures taken. Looking like you got some water and maybe a grotto protecting the front here, a few bunkers, but it's important to note that these greens also have sections to them, much like how we saw at Pinehurst number 2, a lot of contouring, sloping, nooks and crannies, if you will. I mean, there's a lot of intricacies to these greens that you're just not going to see from these aerial pictures, so be mindful of that. Hole 12, again, a little bit of some water trouble left, but looking like one of the few forced layups, if you will. Assuming a 295 yard drive, which I guess players could push driver if they wanted to up here, but who's to say that maybe this runs downhill Aiken to Kapalua, say the Kapalua's first hole, where you're trying not to hit it as far as you can because of the gorge that's there. Perhaps this is something similar to that. So laying back off the tee, setting yourself up for a little bit of a longer iron, maybe an 8 or 9 iron into a green here that is set at an angle, protected by a few bunkers, and again water on the left. 13 looks like it's fairly pinched here with some tree trouble really close to the fairway on the left, but again another one of these Jack Nicklaus dogleg right par 4s, but no water on this hole. 14, 650 yard par 5, again protected by water. I'll zoom in a little bit here. Didn't mean to go that much, but here we are. So protected by water. I don't think many of the professionals will be laying up short, would be my guess. All kind of depends on where you're at positioning wise off the tee. So if a player gets into trouble, I would imagine it might be a layup short of the creek. I guess that's a creek. But a 650 yard par 5, but again, put an asterisk next to that because of the altitude. 15, another pretty severe dogleg right par 4, green protected by water, and bunkers on the left. So I imagine this green would be pretty difficult A lot of precision going to be needed with your irons. Hole 16, another severely protected green by water front. 17, one of the few dogleg lefts. The extremely short par 5. So I imagine we're going to see some eagles this week, especially here on 17. Although this does play significantly uphill. And then hole 18 plays significantly uphill, 512-yard par 4 to end the round. And again, you see a very pinched fairway here on 18. So there's a look at Castle Pines in a hole-by-hole sense. Just give us a good picture of the layout, how some of the holes are designed, what maybe we're going to be looking at this week, or try to give us an idea of what we're going to be looking at in terms of skill sets that's going to be needed around Castle Pines. So with that, let's go ahead to Fantasy National. And there are 2 players that I have starred that did not make the field due to their performance or lack thereof at the St. Jude. Mackenzie Hughes and Tom Kim fell out of the top 50. Tom Kim was your 51st finisher in the FedEx Cup season this year. So Tom Kim and Mackenzie Hughes are not here at Castle Pines. Nick Dunlap and Eric Cole are the 2 that played their way in today with their play at the St. Jude, and they are just not loaded into Fantasy National. They will be come tomorrow. Just wanted to put that out there. No course breakdown. It is defaulted to last year, Caves Valley. I do not believe we have. There it is, Castle Pines. So we can take a look at Castle Pines. This is from the International. This is quite a bit, long time ago, 2006. We can take a quick look at this. I don't want to put a whole lot of emphasis into it. But just to get an idea, we see hole 1 played to 3/10 of a shot under par. A few eagles there. Played to 1/3 of a shot under par. 1/3 of a shot under par. Almost a half a shot under par. The 623-yard par 5. Not a whole lot of eagles, though, surprisingly. Interestingly enough. But what you will see, look at the most difficult holes here. 1500ths as a par 3, pretty difficult. But the second most difficult hole only played to 400ths of a shot over par. I don't know. It's also important to note that Castle Pines was the original modified Stableford format before Barracuda took that over a few years ago. So going to be hard to gain a whole lot of information in that regard, because you see, the 4th easiest hole, players aren't averaging less than a hole in one there. This is how many points they're gathering on that hole because it was a modified Stableford. But yeah, so just to get an idea on where what some of the easier or more difficult holes were, at least when the International was played there. Scoring distribution, several holes that were birdies. We did have a few doubles. I would imagine that's thanks to the water in play. But not a whole lot to be gained, honestly, in the course breakdown. So instead, let's just take a look at a few big picture views here. One of the first things we can look at, and I will extend this time frame to the past 2 years, 36 rounds. This is a Jack Nicklaus design. So on Jack Nicklaus Designs, there it is. On Jack Nicklaus Designs in the past couple of years, your top performers have been Scotty, Colin Morikawa, Xander, Rory, Tony Finau, Sepp Straka, Hideki, Seabass, Christian Bezuidenhout, Matt Fitzpatrick, and Shane Lowry. Now, the courses that are making up this subset of data, of course, Muirfield, host of the Memorial, Jack's Place, Nicklaus Tournament Course, which is part of the Rota at the Amex, and PGA National. Oh, and Valhalla this year. My apologies. So this year's PGA Championship, also a Jack Nicklaus design. So those 4 courses are what is making up this subset of data. So Scheffler, Morikawa, Xander, Rory, Tony, Sepp Straka, Hideki, Seabass, Fitzpatrick, and Lowry. Those are your top Jack Nicklaus performers, or performance on Jack Nicklaus designs. I actually am not going to do the over 7,400 filter. Again, this sits at such a severe altitude that I actually think it's going to play, kind of medium length as compared to what its listed yardage is, which is 8,130. I actually think this is more, mid-length as opposed to long. So I actually don't like the long course filter. If I had to guess, and this is a pure guess, but the reason why I think this might play fairly easy is that a lot of BMWs have played easy over the years. Now, the past couple have played more average, absolutely. Last year at Olympia Fields, 3 rounds of average and an easy. Every single round in 2022 at Wilmington was average. But Caves Valley was easy. That's also a course that sits out at altitude. Medina was easy. Olympia Fields in Illinois was difficult in 2020, but I think there were some extenuating circumstances with that. I'd have to double check. But I do think this is going to play pretty easy this week. So at least to start this week, we're going to look at some easy relative to par filters, and I'll change this if I get any other information. But a lot of the scores at the International back in the 2000s were pretty low, pretty good scoring events. So in rounds that have been easy the past couple of years, your top performers have been Xander, Colin Morikawa, Scotty, Ludwig Aubert, Rory, Davis Thompson, Patrick Cantlay, Justin Thomas, Sungjae, and Taylor Pendrith. Let's take a look at some strokes gained here. We'll just go through all 4 of them in a just kind of a recency view. I do think we're going to be looking at all 4 of these shot types throughout the week. So in the past 24 rounds or 3 months, your top off the tee players in the field this week: Rory, Cam Young, Colin Morikawa, Scotty, Max Grazerman, Xander, Sahith Theegala, Davis Thompson, Bobby Mack, and Akshay Bhatia. Your top approach players in the past 24 rounds: Scotty, Tony Finau, Xander, Aaron Rai, Colin Morikawa, Connors, Hoagie, Sepp Straka, Tommy Fleetwood, and Ludwig Aubert. Your top around the green players: Davis Thompson, Hideki, Rory, Seabass, Morikawa, Sam Burns, Cam Davis, Tony Finau, Justin Thomas, and Denny McCarthy. And then bear with me, I will get some Bent and Poa Anna in here. We're going to have to extend the time frame to the past couple of years. The first one we're going to look at is Detroit. Again, host of the 3M. We're going to look at Oakdale, which did host the RBC Canadian last year. We're going to take a look at I'm a little concerned with Olympia Fields because I think this might incorporate some other tournaments other than last year's BMW. So I'm going to hold off on that one. We're definitely going to look at Silverado, host of the Fortinet. Also has Bent and Poa Anna Greens, Silverado North. And TPC River Highlands, host of the Travelers, has Bent and Poa annua. To apply those course filters, past couple of years, your top putters on Bent and Poa annua, past couple of years, Wyndham Clark, Keegan, Xander, Adam Hadwin, Tommy Fleetwood, Denny McCarthy, Sahith Theegala, Sung Jae, Matthew Pavone, only one tournament. It was the Travelers this year, so keep that in mind. But he did putt well that week. And Adam Scott. So a little bit of a smaller sample size here. 22 rounds the most from Taylor Pendrith. So much smaller sample size, but your top performers on Bent and Poa annua putting is there. Only a couple more things that we're going to take a look at. Obviously no early look file since this course has not been seen since 2006. We don't want to take a look at anything in terms of tournament history since the BMW has changed venues for years now. Patrick Cantlay, if you wanted to take a look at just BMW championships, maybe. I don't put any stock into this since again this course has moved yearly. Olympia Fields last year, Wilmington in 2022, Caves Valley in 2021, again Olympia, Medina, Aronimink. So this has just been changing venues year over year. So I'm not going to put any weight into past BMW championships. But for your information, if you wanted to take a look at it quickly, you can pause the video. And there's your top performers at prior BMWs. But anyway, a couple other things we're going to take a look at here. Let's take a look at par fours. We're particularly interested in the long par fours, say 450 to 5 and 500 plus. So I'm actually going to extend this to all rounds. This might take a while to bring in all of the data, but we're going to look at 2024 all rounds. So on par fours of 450 to 500 yards, which reminds me, I need to go into Excel. I meant to do this right after Pro Visualizer, and I forgot. But I do have the estimated proximity and the whole composition. So I will do that here momentarily. Apologies that I did not do that when we were talking specifically about the course. But your top performers on 450 to 500 yard par fours this season: Scotty, Rory, Xander, Ludwig Aubert, Aaron Rai, Hideki, Colin Morikawa, Alex Noren, Max Graceman, Akshay Bhatia, Henley, and Sungjae. 500 plus, there are a couple of them. So your top 500 plus par fours: Rory, Xander, Connors, Thompson, Bobby Mack, J-Day, Poston, Theegala, Harmon, and Burns. And then if we take a look at par 5 scoring, again, majority of them are 600 to 650. We have a couple of 650 plus. So let's just take a look at par 5s, because I'm pretty sure you're going to have to play these par 5s extremely well to contend this week. So your top par 5 performers in the field this week: Scotty, Tony Finau, Xander, Patrick Cantlay, Davis Thompson, Grazerman, Billy Horschel, Justin Thomas, and Sam Burns. All right, I think a good way to end the show off, even though it was unexpected, talking about the course. Let's go to Microsoft Excel, bring up the estimated proximities and whole composition. And this is from Pro Visualizer, so let me transition to that. We'll zoom out just a little bit. This is the whole composition chart. Again, this is from Pro Visualizer. The official scorecard is out. Gabe wrote a little bit about it. I'm taking this from Pro Visualizer, so there may be a few discrepancies, but overall, this is going to be pretty solid. Our par fours, we do have actually a pretty short par four, a couple of decently longer ones, and then one extremely long par 3. 252 yards. Good evening, Darnell. Thanks for jumping in chat. Much appreciated. Hope you had a much better week than I did for the St. Jude. And if you did not, then we're going to try and turn around our fortunes for the BMW. As you know, we've been shit week. Yeah, so same here. I simply didn't get anything right. It was just a bad week, and I will take ownership of that. I played Rory the most in the 5 digits. In the 10Ks, I played Rory the most. That obviously turned out to be a disastrous decision. I played a lot of Siwoo, played a lot of Sungjae. They did not play well. They just didn't get a lot right. It just happens. It was my first bad week in about a month. We had some success going back to about the John Deere, the 3M Open Championship was good. Scottish was good, very good. I was hoping the bad week, which was going to happen. We're not going to have a winning week every single week. I was hoping the bad week was going to be mild, and it wasn't. It was all spicy of a bad week. So horrible. So yeah, you're right. Let's get it back this week for the penultimate event of the season, the BMW. It was good to see you this evening. Thanks for jumping in chat. So there's a look at our par threes. Again, the majority of our par fours fall into this 450 to 500 bucket. We do have 3 shorter ones, so maybe it would be more prudent to look at the 400 to 450. I don't know. I'll do some more research tomorrow and then get a stronger feel on what I think moving into tomorrow's Data Dive show. But 400 to 450, 50% or half of our par 4s fall from 450 to 5. We do have a couple longer ones, including a 540-yard brute of a par 4. And then the par 4 18th plays 512, but it is uphill. So that's going to be a pretty difficult hole, I would guess. So a good mix of par 4s. And then our par 5s, we have the extremely short 530-yard par 5, which would be short at any course on the PGA Tour. But sitting at altitude, this almost is like a sub 500-yard par 5. Just very, very short. So I would imagine it's going to get attacked a lot this week. We do have 2 very long par 5s, over 650 if I kind of swivel out of the way. We do have some longer par 5s, but again, this course sits at elevation, so not going to play to its true yardage, I wouldn't think. There's a look at the whole composition chart that normally is in Fantasy National. This is taken per Pro Visualizer when we went through the hole-by-hole preview earlier in the show. And then, again, estimated proximity. This is per Pro Visualizer, so I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock into this. I'm not going to do anything with estimated proximity unless I see a compelling argument from elsewhere in golf gambling sphere, if you will. I would not put that much weight into the 75 to 100s. Remember, Pro Visualizer sets up every single par 5 as a 3-shot hole, regardless of its length. So 3 of the 4 par 5s and all 3 of the 75 to 100s are from these mandatory 3-shot par 5s. So all of these get moved into the 200 plus. One of these is a par 5 that gets moved into 200 plus. My guess is we'd have our fair share of 150 to 175s, just like Pro Visualizer says. But I do think we're going to have a fair share of 200 plus with these par 5s getting attacked that Pro Visualizer doesn't set those up as. So, again, if you wanted to hedge, maybe you would put some emphasis into 150 to 175 procs. I'm not going to do it this week. I'm not terribly confident that it's going to be exactly that. But these are the estimated proximities per Pro Visualizer. All right, with that, I'll take us back to Fantasy National to end the show, get you set for the top players of 2024. Of course, Scotty being number 1. That's going to be it for the show. A little bit shorter with no early look file. This course hasn't been seen since 2006, so the data dive actually might be a little bit shorter tomorrow since we won't have any prior leaderboards to look at or anything to that effect. So it's a fun week for me, trying to figure out how Castle Pines is going to play, trying to interpret what I see from aerial views and and from what others are saying, how I'm thinking about the course is going to get played from a professional standpoint, as opposed to someone like me who would just butcher that place every way from Sunday with all the water. So very fun week, very challenging week with no data to go off of, but going to be that much more rewarding, hopefully, when we successfully figure out what we need to do for the week. So thanks to Derek and Darnell for jumping in chat. Thanks to everyone else out there who tunes in, watches, listens, supports the channel by liking the videos, commenting, and subscribing. I always appreciate it. Love what I do. Taking an in-depth look at sports statistics, mainly golf statistics, but sports statistics, giving you a statistician and data analyst view of what he sees, trying to help us all win a little bit of money in the process. This week notwithstanding, because this week was horrendous at the St. Jude. So we're going to try to get back on the winning ways for the BMW. But thanks again for all the support, for all the wagers you made this past week at the St. Jude Championship, for all the DFS contests you played this past week for the St. Jude Championship. And until I see you tomorrow night for the Data Dive show, may all your bets be profitable.